So basically where you find Pure1 Edge services, and actually the way you're going to see it right now is not how it will look currently. So a customer right now, as we're starting to evangelize that this exists, can click on Edge services and say they're interested in it. So we're actually looking for customers that as they learn about it and as we sort of evangelize it outside of the company walls and then show their interest in it. So if you're currently in Pure1, you can actually click that. But basically you're going to see Edge services is down there at the bottom. Now, there's a couple ways to get into it. You can also get into it from this banner. That's actually what Stan was talking about above this banner is where you see those the real critical alerts, things like Log4j and stuff like that. But this banner is there to advertise new services that we offer within Pure1. They only stay there for a certain amount of time, and then they sort of become, they're not new anymore, so that we don't boldly advertise it like this. But from here, you can read the white paper. You can see there's a white paper on it. So if you just want to familiarize yourself, you can, or you can just simply click on Get Started, which is what I'm going to do for the demo. Now the thing is, when you're in here, you're going to click on Gateway is basically already going to be there. So an appliance should ship with the gateway already on. So that's just going to be in the code. But the gate, you need to actually install the actual particular agents. So you can see through the honeycomb view where Edge services is enabled and where it isn't. So I end up for the demo purposes, I just click on where they're not enabled, so I can go ahead and enable the services. So you can do this a couple different ways. You can simply just, what I'm doing here is you click on Edge services not enabled, and then it's going to show me the systems that don't have it enabled below. And then from there, I can select the particular system and enable it. So you can click right there, how to enable Edge services, or you can use there's also the ellipsis menu on the right, which will allow you to do it too. So like if I wanted to choose that particular one, I could just click the ellipsis menu on the right and then just click enable Edge services there. So there's a couple different places that we do it. We try to make the interface intuitive. Now, here, this is where you're turning on Edge services. This isn't installing an application agent. This is actually turning it on. So you do need to run these two CLI commands. So one is to enable the service, and then the other one is actually to update the service. So that's basically what we're doing here. So there is still a manual step. This is like the first time, I think, in history of what we do that there's actually something like this. Trying to think back, I don't remember any other things in the past, but because this is like this is actually doing active management, there's some steps here that would be a little bit more involved than normal. Now, do we automate that in the future? I'm not really sure, but that's what you have to do today. So after that's done, at this point, when I go back, it should show me that those arrays are now enabled so I can start installing application agents. Now, there was a question out there to say, do I have to run them all? And I apologize because this is the early naming convention. So I think I show it twice, and the other time I show it, I have the new naming convention. So I don't want to confuse anyone. But one is the Pure Fusion agent, which I think a lot of you saw that session. So that's one of the agents you can install. There's the Purity Upgrade agent, which I think we're rebranding to self-service upgrades. And then there's an optimization agent. The optimization agent, I would say, is for particular instances where maybe we want to scan an array for critical issues, or there's customer custom configurations. We don't have a ton of those custom configurations in the field, but sometimes there's edge cases where they're doing some kind of workload that is very odd for or very different than the 99% of what's out there. So there could be some where we have custom configurations, which isn't something that's typical, like I said, that we do. But so there you can see the three agents, and each whatever one you want to install, you'll see below it says install this agent. So we're going to focus on the upgrade agent, but I just want to let you know that when you log in here, it's going to show you all three. And currently there's three, but there'll be more, as we evolve the feature. So I'm going to do the upgrade agent for purposes of this, because that's the first use case that we're really pushing here. So here, obviously, if I want to install the upgrade agent, I may have a bunch of arrays that are applicable here. This is where filtering options can be useful. We have customers with a lot of appliances, so here you could use a filtering option to filter it by a whole bunch of different things. In the case in this demo, I actually filter it by city, and I filter it by Seattle. So I'm only going to see, I think it's the 5 arrays that we have in Seattle in the demo environment. So I'm going to deploy the upgrade agent on these 5 systems. So here it is going to give me a little bit of information about what I'm doing. This text isn't actually in here yet, but you'll see this is what you're going to do. You click accept. Now here's where that step-up authentication feature comes into play. There's some steps before you do this, but for all intents and purposes, if you're part of the program and you've started, it's going to then send a text message to your phone with a 6-digit code. You put in that 6-digit code and it allows you to continue and actually install the agent. So you complete the verification here. And then at that point, you'll see that it successfully installed the agent on those 5 appliances. And we log everything. So you'll see there's that review installation log. It's all logged, so you can review everything that you need to. And at this point, you've really successfully installed the upgrade agent, which like I said, we're calling it self-service upgrades. So any questions on that? And if not, I'll just go right into the self-service, which is more interesting because you actually see it doing the activity. This is assuming that we did that prior step. So that prior step is done. We've got the self-service upgrade agent. Now you can see, you'll see there's actually some additional things here that you didn't see. So this is the way it will be named when the feature goes generally available. And you will see something that we didn't really talk about. I'll mention it here. So the honeycomb view is also showing you systems because I have the upgrade agent installed. It's showing me where there's systems that are at risk. So let's say that there's a bug that we find, and what we do typically is we fingerprint that bug, and then that bug we scan the entire fleet to see who's susceptible. Now, before we used to just send a user an email. We would automatically open up cases for that type of thing. But they're also going to be alerted here to say, hey, you have some high risk systems, you should take action. And then the customer they can go through it all self-service, which is basically what I'm going to show you here. So we'll let this go. Here you're going to click on software lifecycle. So that's exactly what I was showing you earlier, except we couldn't get it all the way to doing it self-service. So you click software lifecycle first. Then from here you can see, what systems are at risk. So you can see if there's anything that we might want to recommend upgrades on. Now, if you click on any of those objects like moderate risk, we're going to explain to you why we view it as a moderate risk. But the ones that really we're concerned about are the high risk systems. We've done a good job, doing this and doing proactive upgrades in the field. But so I've selected one that needed that upgrade that was at high risk. I have to select the target version of code that I want to go to. We're already going to pre-populate that because we said it's high risk. This is the code you need to be at. Now, one thing that maybe Stan can answer, if not, we'll just leave it open, probably putting my foot in my mouth on this. There's only one check type today, which is called the cloud check. So I don't know if there's going to be like an on-array check later, but cloud check is the only one that's there today. So I don't know, Stan, if you had any info on that. I'm not 100%. I think everything is cloud check today.
Yeah, the cloud check is going to be the primary method. I believe the goal here is, this is the pre-production and this is part of the testing environment, right? So it's going to have some things that might not make it into live just to make sure that we can test it properly.
Yep. So here it's doing the readiness check to make sure that this particular system is eligible to be upgraded. And again, we're checking a whole bunch of different things. So we're looking at host paths and all sorts of things that might cause a problem if we were to do the upgrade. So we're looking for something that might prevent us from doing it successfully. Now, when I did this particular one, I had one warning. If it's a red warning, you cannot continue, and it's going to tell you what steps you need to do to remediate it. A lot of times that would be an open case with support. But in this case, it was a warning in the demo environment. I ended up ignoring the warning. Now, to do that, you basically, I'll show you as part of the demo, but to ignore the warning, I've got to go and view the results of it. And I see what it is. It says app data is unhealthy. I actually go and it allows you to say either remediate or ignore. There's also a KB article that will pull up to say what exactly was this. So I'm ignoring this particular one here. Now, keep in mind, if there was anything at all that was detrimental to, that would cause an outage or anything like that, it would be red, and you can't ignore anything that's considered critical. So here it just says, do you understand that you're overriding it? And I'm clicking yes, and I'm going to ignore that check. And like I said, there's the link to the KB article if you want to learn more about what exactly it's saying. So at this point, I'm saying I'm going to ignore it. So we're good there. And then here I can actually finally I can go to the software upgrade tab. And here's interesting, because what we're doing is we're showing you the contents of the upgrade bundle. So because we've passed all the checks, it's allowing us to download the upgrade. Now, there's one thing that's really important to know here is you see that little bell. It says, once your bundle is downloaded, please initiate the upgrade within 48 hours. We do that because a lot can change in 48 hours. So we just want to make sure that, yes, we have checked it effectively, but if they wait too long, we will force them to run the check again. So for right now, that's there. Most customers should be going through it at that time. They wouldn't be. We just want to make sure for safety purposes that if they do wait a period of time, it sort of invalidates the check, and then they would have to do it again. It gives them some basic information about, the file size of the bundle, the download time, and that's going to vary based on internet connection and things like that. And then it's going to give us some basic status too. So
I don't get maybe I'm not getting exactly what you're doing with the cloud check. So is the cloud check actually checking the software in the cloud, or is it actually like operations on the cloud that are performing checks on the array?
So we do, we collect telemetry data every 30 seconds from the array, and all our fingerprints are stored in the cloud. So what it's effectively doing is it's taking that moment, the newest moment of time that we have of that array's fingerprint, matching it up with whatever the known issues are, and saying, is this exposed, are we exposed to any particular issues? So the pre-flight check is really the most important one, because it's going to look at, are there any pathing issues? Are there any particular instances where, and I mentioned this before, but this is not the norm. Some customers do have particular options, though, that would be unique to their environment. So I want to make sure, are those going to impact us at all? You might have missed it, but I have to agree to the terms, and then I can click download. When I click download, there's also like a little widget on the side that'll sort of walk me through the process of what it's doing at every particular step. And like Stan says, we log literally everything. And it's going to do the step up again. So we're going to have to do the step up. So you have to do the step up for basically everything. When you're getting an application agent, you need to do the step up. And then when you're doing anything that would be initiating an activity where you're making a change, you're going to have to do the step up again. So we then complete the verification here. Now, I know we've probably definitely had this conversation before, but this isn't one that we have all that much anymore. But you're going to see it download the software. And it does go controller by controller, because that's how we do things, right? We always have one active controller, and there's always a controller that's, one is taking all the incoming I/O, and the other one's sort of there for purposes of if something fails. So we do upgrade them one at a time, and you are prompted. So you're going to see this. The way I had to edit the video, it's a little bit goofy because I jump around a little bit. So just bear with me a second. But you're going to start to see me initiate the upgrade, and when I do, because the bundle's been downloaded, so I have to go and select again that I agree with the terms, and now I'm going to start the actual upgrade. And you'll see we do run the check again, so we run it again just to make sure the array is healthy and we're good. It passed the checks. Now here is interesting, because it's saying, do I want to initiate the upgrade? And there is action required. So here you do have an option to back out here. So at this point, you can see it says initiate upgrade or cancel upgrade. If you cancel it, it just rolls everything back. We never do anything. If you initiate the upgrade, it's going to start upgrading that controller. And based on the fact that we're even at this step, we're healthy, we should be fine. So I click on start, and I'm going to click on initiate the upgrade. I'm not going to cancel it, but like I said, if I do, it's just going to roll it back to its prior state. We didn't actually change anything, so it's just going to stay the same. Now here, you do have another option to back out again. After it upgrades the other one, you do have an option. You can roll it back one more time. So you have multiple chances to back out. At that point, That's it. So these activities are relatively easy even now when we have support involved. But this would be, and obviously I fast forwarded through it. I mean, if you look at the time frame for the actual upgrade, I'd say maybe that whole activity would probably take 20 minutes to do the actual part right here where we're doing one and then the other. Obviously for purposes of the demo, I wasn't going to have us sit here for 20 minutes, but
you did it for a single array. Okay. Do you have something in place or planning if I want to repeat this automatically for 10, 20 arrays and, maybe through policies or something, because if it takes 20 minutes one and I have, 20 array, it starts to become, quite an activity.
I don't think I'm speaking out of place here, right? But that's right. This is V1 of the product. We're starting off with just like the very initial capabilities and letting people do one at a time. But eventually, yes, the automation. We don't want like our largest customers with over 50 arrays to 100 to 200 arrays to go through one at a time. But initially, that is going to be how it's going to be, right? And we expect that for the first, at least short period of time, we're going to get light adoption as people kind of take a look and as people warm up to the fact that we're going to have the cloud taking action. Once that's more of a mainstream, I do think there's a lot of potential for what we can do with more automation, with letting it be even more hands off. But because it's the first time we're putting this out, I think doing it one at a time is the current.
Okay. What happens if with the patch you introduce even a nastier bug? So do you have a rollback capability here that is managed by the same tool?
Right. So the rollback you can do on two parts of the process. So after you're downloaded and after you upgrade the first controller. After you upgrade the second controller, you can no longer roll back. Pure Storage just in general doesn't support downgrade of code, which could potentially be more dangerous than the bug itself, right? So we want to keep that in mind. But yeah, you do have every opportunity to make sure that you can roll back until you get to the point where you're upgraded. Then you're on that code.
I have a question. At any point during the verification process, is there a checksum of the download?
Yeah, there is. I don't think I capture it in the demo, but there's a spot here after the download where it checks the bundle. I don't know if I actually caught it when I recorded it though. So during this period of time when it downloads it, it does a check to make sure that the bundle is correct. The other thing I didn't mention is if there was a spot during it where the customer felt uncomfortable with anything, even though everything seems to be going smooth, they can click on open support ticket. It will actually capture where they are within that process. So to take a snapshot of where they are if they wanted to do that. Now they could also call, but you can open up a case at any point during the process if they didn't feel comfortable. I suspect in the beginning when people are just getting their feet wet with it, we might see them utilize that feature. But the customers that have been with us for a while, they're very comfortable with this kind of thing. It's the newer customers that maybe came off of systems where this would be completely crazy to even think of. So we may get, but for the most part, I just want to mention you can open up a ticket at any stage of the process. But yes, during the download, there should be a little bit of text there that says that it validated that the bundle's correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong, when I'm watching the step through, the standard path then is to upgrade the passive controller first?
That's right. Yep.
So that you can make sure everything's good, and if anything happens, you can obviously still go back to your other one after that at that stage.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. The process for all intents and purposes, the process is exactly how it would be currently, except it's just automated under with the agent. Yeah,
it's not the support team actually typing those commands for each step. It's letting it go.
Yep, exactly. So that was actually the demo of self-service upgrades.
So you actually talk about you gathering telemetry every 30 seconds or whatever. Is there actually a way that you can go view the telemetry that Pure has gathered?
In terms of the logs themselves, no. But essentially the information that in Pure1, the rest of Pure1 is the telemetry that we gather in terms of performance, in terms of any of the metrics that we have available. Yeah.
Okay, but there's no way to actually get an idea of what information they're actually collecting, or like log into Pure1 to be able to view a dashboard of the analysis of the telemetry that's been collected.
There you can, so we have documentation that covers what is collected, and if you we have shared the logs with customers that have had security teams that come in and asked about that, but generally no, it's not something that we have available. The logs, to be perfectly honest, they're very verbose, and your typical user will
I understand that, and I the two pieces of information that I would be interested in is what exactly are you collecting from my system?
Yeah.
And if you're collecting it and you have this cloud service, can you just, do some basic analysis of like, here are the peaks and valleys of the performance that's going on, flag things that might be security risks, that type of thing.
Yeah, and so the use cases that you just mentioned, those are what Pure1. You can view the performance logs, but you don't actually get access to the logs themselves. We interpret the logs and give them to you. You could imagine that, you could think that Pure1 is essentially a log display, but with a pretty interface.
Well,
right? Yeah.
I'm asking this because I'm guessing that at Pure, you're actually doing analysis on all this telemetry data you collect. If you're doing the analysis, wouldn't it be nice to allow the customer to see what the analysis?
Yeah, and that is Pure1, right?
Okay.
So the output of that analysis is Pure1.
And we do have a, I can't remember the number, but we get this a lot. Like if it's a new customer and you start talking to them about Pure1 and you start talking about the things that it does, a lot of times their security team gets involved and says, I want to know exactly what telemetry data you're sending. So I can't remember the number of the technical report, but we can definitely get it out there. But it actually goes through, like Stan was saying, it goes through everything that Pure1 collects, because, in the early days, a lot of it was, well, what is, what data, especially when we first started, it was, what data are you sending? Because, there was a misconception that it was actually data. It's not data. It's just the, information about the system and things like that could help us understand, growth patterns and things like that. We have a whole section called Workload DNA that really looks at IO patterns and things like that. So there's lots of very, to Stan's point, very verbose, low-level stuff, but we try our best to make it very user-friendly with the front end that Pure1, a lot gives our customers. So
we'll talk a little bit about Pure Fusion. I'm not going to get into too many details about this. There was, as I mentioned before, fantastic presentation by a couple of our coworkers at Pure, Larry and Anthony, that went into detail about Fusion. But for those that haven't had a chance to watch it, Fusion is kind of what it says up here. It's a self-service autonomous storage as code built as infrastructure. And the way to think about it is it allows you to interact with your fleets of arrays rather than individual arrays. And it gives you the ability to take action on them as if you were interacting with the public cloud. Right. So you're no longer using and interacting with the hardware itself. You're interacting with concepts and policies and that kind of stuff. Right. Because it's software based, it's essentially infinite scale out. Right. There are, of course, limits, but they are much higher than any traditional hardware scale out capabilities. The self-service provisioning, obviously, and any storage admin can go in and provision volumes and all that kind of stuff. But this is now getting to the other set of customers where you've got your application admins that are going to be able to come in and request storage, and based on policies, they'll be able to get access to them. It gets into the cloud operating model, as I mentioned, and intelligent workload management. So when you're placing these workloads, Fusion is tying directly into Meta. Our Pure Storage is Meta, not the other new Meta that's out there, which is definitely something we're going to have to think about, because that's going to be not going to be fun to explain every time. But we interact. The Fusion will interact with Meta get the information that they need in order to understand where to best place these workloads, and then ultimately how to keep this environment healthy.
Does Meta only work with Pure Fusion? Are those two coupled together? Is it like its AI engine? Or?
Meta is the AI engine. Meta powers all of our AI capabilities. So the workload planner, any of the recommendations that we talked about earlier, those are all powered by Meta.
Does it also power Pure1 or no?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm kind of confused about the difference between the two.
Pure1 is the front end interface. Meta, you could think about Meta like Siri. It's just a name for the overall AI capabilities. Okay. It's not any individual thing. It's just AI, but we gave it a fancy name.
I'm actually surprised you don't have a sort of proxy for your services. I mean, you were talking about, the client with 150 arrays, and you have to, open the connection between all these arrays and your services, while concentrating everything on a single point. It simplifies security, and a lot of other mechanisms. I mean, so I can trust something that is in my network more than opening 150 ports in 150 arrays, and maybe more, and maybe I can make other mistakes later or forgot something, and when then I have to talk again with the security guys, and storage guys don't love security and networking guys usually. I mean, I don't love them.
Yeah. So the answer to that is kind of manyfold. We can certainly get into a little bit later, and once we close down here, I do want to get into some of the other things that we did mention. But we are working on ways to simplify that, right? So again, this is the V1 of the product. Eventually, we will get to that point. But we're looking to test and validate this idea and make sure that customers are comfortable with this. And then once we get the idea out, we're going to start getting into optimization use cases, right? So these customers with 150 arrays or even more, we don't expect them to just call us up tomorrow and just be like, yeah, go ahead, start it up, right? And so it's gonna take a little while for people to kind of come on and get going, and there's plenty of room to make improvements. But there's obviously more under the hood that we have in store that I just couldn't cover today. And so I just wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about some of the other things that we have in Pure1. Right. We recently acquired Portworx. Portworx is a big part of the future of Pure Storage. And Pure1 has focused significantly on making sure that it's represented in the product and in the capabilities that we're doing. So we have Portworx monitoring available in Pure1. We're getting to the point where we have more capabilities between the two products. And we've done a pretty good job of integrating a brand new acquisition into Pure1, which I thought was really quick how we actually got there. But obviously long term, we want to integrate it even more, right? So there's a lot of things that we're talking about in terms of how do we represent Portworx performance? How do we make sure that our customers are getting the information they need about their Portworx clusters? Because this is not, it's not storage anymore. It's containers and container storage. And so there are different concepts that we're looking to introduce to make it a little bit easier to use Pure1 for those customers. There are a couple other things that we're doing on our back end that are also improving our customers' lives. And one of the things that's near and dear to my heart, because, well, it's a project that I'm working on, is optimizing our alerting infrastructure. And so internally, what we've done is we've introduced a concept called incidents. What incidents are, they group sets of alerts that we identify as the cause or a symptom of a single problem. So one of the easiest examples that I can come up with is you have two arrays that are running an active cluster. For those that aren't familiar, that's our synchronous replication solution, active-active. Now, if something happens, both of those arrays will send an alert. And both of those alerts will open a case both of those cases will need somebody kind of taking a look into it. So what we've done is we, instead of those alerts creating cases, those alerts are now tied under a single incident because we have the knowledge to say that, hey, these are two arrays, they're an active cluster, they both sent an alert at the same time. These are probably the same thing. And so instead of firing two cases, creates an incident, and that incident creates a case for our support engineers to take a look and investigate. So there's part of that. There's also some other things, right? If something ever does happen, it's not always one thing that happens. Sometimes it's, you have a failover, which causes some other event, and all of these things have different alerts. We, again, group them up under a single incident and allow our support org to kind of have more information. And I'm sure you're all wondering why I'm telling you about what we're doing on the back end, because it's not customer facing, but ultimately what we're doing is making our support organization more efficient, right? Our support organization doesn't need to worry about some of these operational things anymore, and ultimately can give a better experience to our customers. And for Pure Storage, there's not a lot to grow in terms of support, right? We've got some absolutely fantastic support teams, and our customers love the support experience. And so we are kind of grasping at straws to see how we can improve it. But I did want to call this out as an example of the fact that we are looking for ways to improve the support experience.
As I said, a way that you could improve it is actually make this information available to your customers through some sort of portal.
Yeah. So outside of Portworx and alerting, we have our traditional monitoring use cases where you have your performance monitoring, capacity monitoring. You have the ability to access a lot of the information from the arrays in Pure1. And I think we are in a fantastic place to kind of continue expanding what Pure1 is and does. And again, we're trying to change how people are thinking about what storage is and how it works and how you interact with it. Trying to change the paradigm from more of a pull model into more of a push model, where you don't need to think about what you need to think about. You don't need to figure out what you need to know about the arrays. We just kind of tell you whenever that piece of information is pertinent.
From what you've shown us today, how much of that can customers have a look at right now, with the understanding that it is a V1 type product?
In the live interface, they can actually go to Edge Services today, and they can say they're interested in Edge Services and sort of get going. Because it's not GA yet, but I mean, it will be within, I want to say, is it
right now? We're still saying first half.
Yeah.
Which is where we are, but.
Yeah, so the I'm interested will alert us, and we can have that a conversation with them to say if you want to be part of the sort of the small group that's in there right now. I think we're still accepting those, but yeah, it's pretty soon actually. So we're talking, within the next probably 30, 60 days, they can start using these things.
In terms of the proactive recommendations, we're rolling that out again to a limited set of customers. And the biggest thing there is to make sure that, we have a proper communications cadence because, as people brought up, we do not want to be spamming people. We do not want to be in the business of another email, right? And so that's one of the biggest things. And so there's not a concrete timeline on that. It's going to be based on the feedback that we receive from our customers and how palatable that is. And so we're going to continue expanding the amount of customers that will be available to, and then ultimately, of course, it'll be live. But the technology is there. We're just fine tuning the bits and pieces of the actual notifications of that capability.